The young and the restless spoilers suggest that Sienna Bacall may soon find herself at a crossroads, one that could lead her toward an unexpected new chapter in her romantic life. For a while now, things between Sienna and Noah Newman have seemed off, not dramatically broken, not yet shattered beyond repair, but strained in a way that lingers beneath every conversation and glance. It's the kind of tension that doesn't explode overnight, but slowly erodes the foundation of a relationship until there's little left to hold onto. At first, their relationship seemed intriguing, even exciting to some, but for many observers, something never quite clicked. There was always an unspoken disconnect, something about their dynamic that felt mismatched. It wasn't just about personalities, though, that played a role. Noah has always been steady, grounded, and somewhat predictable in his emotional approach. Sienna, on the other hand, carries a sharper edge. She's bold, complicated, and not easily confined to the kind of simplicity Noah often gravitates toward. That difference might have sparked initial attraction, but over time, it began to feel more like a gap neither of them truly knew how to bridge. Conversations between them have grown shorter lately. Where there was once warmth, now there's hesitation. Where there was understanding, now there are misunderstandings left unresolved. It's as if both of them sense what's coming but are reluctant to say it out loud. Breaking up would mean admitting that what they had was strong enough, and neither seems quite ready to take that step. Yet outside forces are quietly pushing them in that direction. Audra Charles has re-entered Noah's orbit in a way that feels anything but coincidental. Their history isn't just lingering in the background, it's resurfacing, demanding attention. Every interaction between them carries the weight of unfinished business, of emotions that were never fully resolved, and perhaps most dangerously, of feelings that never truly disappeared. Audra has made it increasingly clear, both directly and indirectly, that Noah still matters to her. She hasn't hidden the fact that what they shared was real, meaningful, and deeply impactful. There's a vulnerability in the way she speaks about him, a sense of loss that suggests she's never entirely moved on. For Noah, that's a complication he didn't anticipate, but one he's struggling to ignore. Memories of their past have started creeping into his present, moments they shared, choices they made, and especially the heartbreak they endured together. It all lingers just beneath the surface. Their relationship didn't just end, it fractured under the weight of something deeply painful. And now, as those memories resurface, so does the question of whether they truly gave themselves a fair chance. Audra's quiet confessions about her past with Noah have only deepened the emotional stakes. She's hinted at the pain she carried, the loss that shaped her, and the regret that still lingers. There's a sense that she wants him to understand, not just what happened, but what it meant, and perhaps what it still means. For Noah, that's not easy to process. He's built a life that moved forward, or at least tried to, but with Audra back in the picture, that forward momentum feels uncertain. Sienna has started to notice the shift. At first it was subtle, a distracted look here, a delayed response there, but over time those small signs added up. Noah's attention isn't where it used to be, his energy feels divided, his emotions harder to read, and while he hasn't said anything outright, Sienna can feel it, something is pulling him away. She doesn't confront him immediately, instead she watches, listens, and waits. There's a part of her that hopes she's wrong, that this is just a passing phase, but another part, the more intuitive, sharper side of her, already knows the truth. And that truth is uncomfortable. If Noah is drifting back toward Audra, then where does that leave her? Sienna isn't someone who clings to something that's already slipping away. She's strong enough to walk away when she needs to, but that doesn't mean it won't hurt. Despite everything she invested in this relationship, she allowed herself to believe in it, and now she's faced with the possibility that it might not have been enough. Meanwhile, another story is quietly unfolding, one that may soon intersect with hers in ways she doesn't yet expect. Daniel Romalotti Jr. has been dealing with heartbreak of his own. His decision to step aside and let Tessa Porter find her way back to Mariah Copeland wasn't easy. It was selfless, yes, but also deeply painful. Letting go of someone you love, even when you believe it's the right thing to do, leaves a mark that doesn't fade quickly. Daniel has tried to keep busy, to focus on anything that might distract him from the ache, but loneliness has a way of finding its way in, especially during quiet moments. And lately, those moments have become harder to ignore. He tells himself he did the right thing, that Tessa belongs with Mariah, that stepping aside was necessary, but knowing something intellectually doesn't always make it easier emotionally. He misses her. Not just the relationship, but the connection, the comfort, the way she made everything feel a little less complicated. Now that space is empty, and he's left figuring out what comes next. It's in this emotional state that his path may soon cross with Sienna's in a more meaningful way. They aren't strangers, but they haven't been particularly close either. Still, there's something about shared heartbreak that has a way of bringing people together. When two people understand each other's pain, even without many words, a bond can form quickly. Sienna, dealing with the possible end of her relationship, may find herself drawn to someone who understands what it feels like to lose something important. Daniel, searching for something or someone to help fill the void left behind, might see in Sienna a kindred spirit. At first, it could be simple, conversations that start casually, perhaps even accidentally, moments where they open up just a little more than they intended, laughter that feels surprising given everything they're both going through. But sometimes, those small moments are the beginning of something bigger. Of course, nothing about this situation is simple. Sienna's friendship with Tessa adds a layer of complication that can't be ignored. Even if Tessa has chosen to move forward with Mariah, emotions don't just disappear overnight. Seeing Daniel with someone new, especially someone she knows, could stir up feelings she thought she had under control. Tessa might tell herself she's happy for them, she might even believe it, at least on the surface. But deeper down, there could be flickers of jealousy, of discomfort, of unresolved emotion that refuses to stay buried. And if those feelings come to light, they could create tension, not just for Daniel and Sienna, but for everyone involved. Still, life rarely waits for perfect circumstances. If Sienna and Daniel find comfort in each other, they may decide it's worth the risk. After all, both of them are searching for something, connection, understanding, maybe even a second chance at happiness. Whether that path leads to something lasting or just a temporary refuge remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, change is coming. For Noah, that change may mean confronting his past and deciding whether it still holds a place in his future. For Sienna, it may mean letting go of what no longer works and opening herself up to something new. And for Daniel, it may be about finding a way to heal and move forward, even when it feels impossible. As these stories begin to intertwine, emotions will rise, loyalties will be tested, and choices will have consequences. And by the time everything unfolds, none of their lives will be quite the same. The shift didn't happen all at once, it rarely ever does. For Noah Newman, the pull toward his past with Audra Charles became harder to ignore with each passing day. What had once been quiet memories tucked away in the corners of his mind now stood boldly in front of him, impossible to avoid. Every conversation with Audra seemed to peel back another layer of unresolved emotion, forcing him to confront feelings he had long convinced himself were behind him. At first, he told himself it was just nostalgia, a natural reaction to seeing someone who had once meant so much to him, but the more time they spent together, the more he realized it wasn't that simple. There was still something there. Audra, for her part, wasn't pretending otherwise. She had reached a point where honesty felt easier than denial. She spoke about their past with a quiet intensity, never demanding anything from Noah but making it clear that what they had shared wasn't something she could just erase. There was pain in her voice when she spoke about what they had lost, but there was also hope, fragile, cautious, but undeniably present. That hope began to take root in Noah as well. Meanwhile, Sienna Bacall found herself standing on increasingly unstable ground. The emotional distance between her and Noah had grown too wide to ignore. She had given him space, hoping he would find his way back to her, but instead, it felt like he was drifting further away. One evening, the silence between them became too much. Sienna finally confronted him, not with anger but with a calmness that carried far more weight. She asked the question she had been holding back for weeks, even though she already suspected the answer. Noah didn't deny it. He didn't try to dress it up or soften the truth. He admitted that seeing Audra again had stirred up feelings he didn't fully understand, feelings he needed to sort through. He told Sienna it wouldn't be fair to her to pretend everything was fine when it clearly was. It wasn't the kind of confrontation that ended in shouting or accusations. In many ways, that made it harder. Because it meant they both understood. Sienna listened, her expression steady even as something inside her quietly broke. She had always been strong, always capable of handling difficult truths, but that didn't make them hurt any less. In the end, there was no dramatic goodbye, just a mutual understanding that whatever they had built together had reached its end. And just like that, it was over. The aftermath left Sienna with a mix of emotions she couldn't easily sort through. There was disappointment, of course, and frustration at Noah, at the situation, maybe even at herself for believing it would work. But beneath all of that, there was also a sense of clarity. She had seen it coming. That didn't make it easier, but it did make it easier to accept. Still, acceptance didn't fill the emptiness. That's where Daniel Romalotti Jr. came in. Their first real conversation after her breakup wasn't planned. It happened by chance, one of those moments where two people find themselves in the same place at the same time, both carrying more than they care to admit. At first, the conversation stayed light, casual observations, small talk, nothing too revealing, but there was an unspoken understanding between them, a sense that they were both navigating similar emotional territory. It didn't take long for that understanding to deepen. Daniel opened up about his decision to step aside for Tessa Porter, about the pain of letting go even when he knew it was the right thing to do. Sienna, in turn, shared pieces of what had happened with Noah, not every detail, but enough to paint a picture. There was no judgment between them, just empathy. And in that shared space, something began to shift. What started as occasional conversations turned into something more consistent. They found reasons to spend time together, sometimes intentional, sometimes not. There was a comfort in each other's presence that neither of them had expected. For Daniel, Sienna brought a sense of energy he hadn't realized he was missing. She challenged him, made him laugh, pulled him out of the quiet sadness he had been carrying. For Sienna, Daniel offered stability, but not the kind she had with Noah. This was different. It wasn't about predictability. It was about understanding, about feeling seen in a way that didn't require explanation. Of course, nothing stays simple for long. Tessa Porter began to notice the change. At first, it was subtle, small moments that caught her attention but didn't fully register. A look between Daniel and Sienna, a conversation that lingered just a little too long, a shift in energy that felt different. She told herself it didn't matter, she had made her choice. She was committed to rebuilding her life with Mariah Copeland, to giving their relationship the chance it deserved. And she meant it. But emotions aren't always that cooperative. The idea of Daniel moving on, especially with someone she considered a friend, stirred something in her she wasn't prepared for. It wasn't that she wanted him back, not exactly, but seeing him form a connection with Sienna forced her to confront feelings she thought she had already resolved. Jealousy, even in its mildest form, has a way of complicating things. Tessa tried to hide it, to push it aside and focus on her present, but the more time Daniel and Sienna spent together, the harder that became. And eventually, those feelings began to surface. A comment here, a moment of tension there, nothing explosive, but enough to create an undercurrent of discomfort that couldn't be ignored forever. Sienna, perceptive as ever, picked up on it. She hadn't set out to create conflict, especially not with Tessa. Their friendship mattered to her, and the last thing she wanted was to jeopardize it, but at the same time, she couldn't deny what was happening between her and Daniel. It wasn't forced, it wasn't calculated. It was real. That realization forced her to make a choice. She could step back, protect her friendship, and avoid the complications that were beginning to form. Or she could move forward, accepting that not every path comes without consequences. Daniel faced a similar dilemma. He had already sacrificed his own happiness once, stepping aside for what he believed was right. The idea of doing that again, of walking away from something that felt promising, wasn't easy to accept. This time he wasn't sure he wanted to let go. As tensions quietly built and emotions grew more complicated, Noah found himself reaching a turning point of his own. His connection with Audra had deepened, evolving into something that felt both familiar and new. They had begun to confront the past more openly, to talk about the pain they had endured and the mistakes they had made. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, moments where the weight of their history felt too heavy to overcome. But there were also moments of hope. For Noah, the question became whether he was willing to take that risk again, to open himself up to something that had once hurt him so deeply. For Audra, it was about trust, about believing that this time could be different. And as their story began to move forward, it became clear that the past wasn't something they could escape. But maybe it was something they could finally understand. Back on the other side of town, Sienna and Daniel stood on the edge of something new, uncertain but undeniably compelling. Their connection had grown into something neither of them could easily dismiss, something that felt like more than just a rebound or a distraction. It felt like possibility. Yet with that possibility came risk. Friendships could be strained, old wounds could reopen, and the delicate balance between past and present could shift in ways none of them were fully prepared for. Still, life rarely offers guarantees. Sometimes all you can do is take the step in front of you and hope it leads somewhere worth going. For Sienna, Daniel, Noah, Audra, Tessa and Mariah, the road ahead was anything but clear, but one thing was certain: the choices they made now would shape everything that came next. And as their lives continued to intertwine in unexpected ways, one truth remained at the center of it all. Love in all its forms is never simple. If you enjoy Y&R spoilers, updates and daily drama, make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more videos.